Welcome to the dental department. I've dedicated a whole video only for that, to really cover everything that you know how to look after your teeth and how they are related to your health problems, any kind of degenerative disease. Now, the first chart that I would like to look at is behind me here, is that medical chart that shows which tooth is correlated via meridian energy to organs. And that's very significant. If you go to a very good holistic clinic, dentist, they have a dentistry and they would check the tooth that are all infected, the bacterial load, toxicity, heavy metal poisoning. They would check that and then they would tell, okay, danger for these and these organs. The oncologist would check through all the organs, check for all the functionality and would say, okay, are these teeth okay? And then they compare their notes. And that's what we found at the Paracelsus Clinic, for example. They have a beautiful setup to work with both oncologist and dentist together to prepare, to detoxify and to correct dental issues in correlation with your teeth. So it's something that we need to address and we need to check. So if you have any of the back upper teeth, strong relationship to breast cancer, then we have stomach, pancreas, thyroid problems. If you have the front teeth, their urinary system, all your kidneys are directly ovaries. So things to check. Just print out the chart underneath, and if you see, oh, I have a root canal filled tooth in that and I have breast cancer, well, maybe. In my case, it was quite shocking that I went to a trade show and they did thermography and they were testing my teeth and they were checking out the meridians, and he said, Marcus, there is a serious problem. Do you have problems with your gallbladder? And I was like, no. I didn't know that I had. And then afterwards we realized that the tooth that is directly linked to my gallbladder had to remove surgically in an emergency surgery about half a year later. He told me that prior to it. So there is many things that we learn to understand based on that meridian energy, but it's something that we need to know and check in case you have cancer, because if that's the trigger, well, treating that won't help without removing the trigger. Okay? So let's look at some of the problems. The biggest one is heavy metal and different types of metal. So if you have, let's say, a gold tooth and you have an amalgam filling, well, they would cause a galvanic reaction between the two teeth that you can go to Radio Shack and you get yourself a tiny LED light, and then you make two long wires to it and you hold one to your gold tooth, one to your amalgam filling, and you will see that this little light shines up. Be careful that it doesn't blow. It's actually really a conductive energy because the salt water in your mouth, the saliva, is conductive. So you have an ongoing electric currency. Now this fellow here behind me, he had palladium pins, he had amalgam fillings, he had gold crowns, and he had palladium crowns. That's a big mixture, and this is the biggest problem, all the mercury and the silver is evaporating out of amalgam filling in no time because it's corroding. You can see that on that image, like you have that dark blackening of the tooth. That's corrosion because the high quality gold is actually causing that galvanic reaction and corrosion to the other tooth. So two different metals or three or four is really dangerous. They found a direct effect onto your thyroid. Stress, it's an ongoing stress, it's ongoing electric currency in your mouth. It's like sitting on a battery, when you touch them with your tongue. Well, it's ongoing there, and that is a problem then causing to thyroid. Your whole digestive system will be impaired. It's causing problems to your brainstem, stress levels, highest stress levels, and you probably won't know where they come from. It also causes problems in the frontal lobe and amygdala, concentration, mood swings, all sorts of issues. So that needs to go straight away. The next thing would be cavitations. And that's something again that I had. I had a cavitation, which from a tooth that was pulled when I was 18, 19, but it wasn't cleaned out underneath. And when the dentist did an x-ray, he saw like a dark, big shadow underneath. And he said, wow, that's a big cavitation. That's a big abscess underneath. in the jaw, in the bone. It was not even a tooth above, it was just in the jaw. And you can see that here, that little white mark, that area, or the dark black one above. That's a cavitation. That is where the jaw, the bone, is invaded with massive amounts of bacteria. Now it's pretty simple. When the dentist pulls a tooth and they don't drill out and clean out the bone underneath, well then the bacteria that were in that infection are still in that rotten bone. And they stay there, and then they stitch everything up. The tooth, the gum closes, then the bone grows above it, and then you have like a cave, a little enclosed cave filled with bacteria. Now bacteria breed and poop and extract thioethers. And those thioethers then travel through the bloodstream into your liver, and they cause havoc. They're highly dangerous, highly toxic, and suppress your immune system. So if you have one of those old caves somewhere, they need to be treated. A lot of holistic dentists today treat them with ozone, direct ozone injection. Some of them use Sanum remedies directly injected into the bone, or they use or they clean out the area. They open it up and clean it out, which is probably the most invasive. I think ozone is a nice way, Sanum is a nice way, but in any form they need to get rid of that bacteria load and then regrow the bone. And as soon as they do, the infection is gone. Your cancer might have a chance to restore, to go away, or to reduce. It's directly linked. And Bill Henderson has done a lot of work in that and explained many different situations or cases where people, as soon as they did their jaw, the cancer started to go away. So don't ignore that. That's, by the way, one of those images where you can see that dark shadow underneath the tooth. Well, it's really significant. That's an abscess. That's where the bacteria load underneath is growing and breeding and eating up the bone. And if you have something like that, either with your tooth above and it's an abscess at the root, or it's already gone and you just have it in your jawbone, these are really dangerous. There was once a company that created Cavitat. In Europe, you still find a few devices that are used in clinics. They find those cavitations and they're really good. But again, it's one of those companies that really struggled to fight against that conventional medicine and medical board of the dentists. The next chapter I would like to talk about is dental toxins in form of root canal filled teeth. We don't talk about the filling and the killing off of the nervous system and all of that. That's already toxic, but that's not the issue. The biggest problem is once the tooth is cleaned out, they filled that hole, the nerve string in the middle, they filled that and it's all nice and clean and clear. And then you go home and then you get sick. And then over time it gets worse. And with every day, this whole thing becomes a nightmare. And you don't know that it is because you won't have a feeling because it's dead. That tooth, that organ was killed off and they left a dead organ in your body. But the results are devastating. And the problem is, if you see underneath that image, you see it looks like a coral reef. That's the dentin. You have outside the enamel, then you have inside that filling, which is, like your nervous system and the blood supply of the tooth. If that's drilled out and filled up, then you still have the dentin, which is that soft material between the enamel and the root inside, and that is like corals. Thousands of tubules, miles long, like as big as a soccer field, is the area within one tooth of just tubes. And if you look at that and they are all hollow, what do they fill up with? Bacteria, because it was a living matter before, and if that's rotting away, then the bacteria take that place as a breeding ground. And it's moist and warm and beautiful, lots of nourishment coming through. So in regards to that, that's the perfect ideal space. And they leach out the same as in a cavitation, thioethers into the body, which is very dangerous. I can tell you there is a lot of dentists who say, we just treat with ozone and then you can save it, and they drill it out. The problem is that to perforate that and to kill everything off is only a short-term solution. And those bacteria grow back in such a speed. And then once the body is sensitized, it's like food sensitivities. Once the body has learned to react, and the bacterial load bounces back, you will have straight away the same symptoms, the same problems. And if it's related to a cancer, it's definitely a no-no. So just be careful what your dentist suggests. And that brings us to treatments. Treatments are very significant. Ozone is a very beautiful way to sterilize all those areas. And it's also important when you had a treatment. Like in my case, when they opened up that cavitation to clean it out, it was actually like a suction, like you could feel the pressure that was building up in there. And once that toxic load was released and they cleaned it out and they really drilled out that old bone mass and they got all the bacteria and ozonated it, the next day my whole lip inside, the whole gum underneath the tongue, hundreds of blisters and white pus, and it was so highly toxic. Now, if you do that without a clinic that can help you deal with that bacterial load, that can be very dangerous. Now, I was on the drip. I had IV blood wash with ozone. I had glutathione. I had vitamin C infusions. Like really everything to boost my immune system to take care of that bacterial load. And that's something that I would recommend. First of all, prepare yourself before you go to the dentist. Then check for a dentist who really has all the means to protect you. And that's lining, rubber lining, isolating tooth, suction. They sit there with gas masks when they drill out the mercury. So it's crucial that you do that properly. And then the third stage is that they have all the surrounding medical support to really deal with bacteria, to deal with toxicity, that they don't poison you even further. I've seen so many patients and actually had a little bit of a problem with that when we released our movie. We spoke about that. And a lot of people went to their dentist and said, I need to get this and this done. And they did it with a conventional dentist. And afterwards, their cancer exploded. When you drill out mercury without the proper precaution, you release so many toxins into the system that can be the knockoff. That can be what kills you. So don't do that. Be very careful. We spoke about, already that if you have impairments, and if you don't know, it's going to come. Don't even know which sequence we're going to make those movies, but I have a separate video which is on toxicity. So if you have an impaired DNA process, your liver can't break down toxins, and you release massive amounts, then that can be a killer. So be very careful, look for a proper environment, prepare, speak with the physician before you get going, look at your liver detox pathways, and then address it step by step so that it's never overwhelming for your body, that it's not too much of a hit at once, but that you do it in a nice sequence that you can deal with and handle perfectly.